Hello, I can't, this is great. Thank you for being here today. This is so nice. You know, we have, we're back sort of to winter today, so I really appreciate you making the trip where you came from to be here. Thanks so much. I guess, well, all right, you know, the day has arrived, and it seems like it's been a long time coming for me. The Cardinal Black is finally out. I'm so glad that it's out. I guess you all are fans of the series?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, all right. You know, when I started the series, I didn't know it was going to be a series. And if you've read Speaks the Nightbird, it really, you know, I was in a situation where I was doing horror work, and I thought, you know, I really want to do something different. And I've always loved history. I've loved this colonial era. So I thought, in a way, that what I always wanted to do was like do history sort of as the Hammer horror films would have done it. You know, if you know the Hammer horror films, you know, and not the monsters, but you've got, you know, the fog-shrouded streets and, you know, the creepy alleyways and the strange characters. That's kind of what I was going for. So, you know, when I did the first book, Speaks the Nightbird, you know, my publisher was like, you know, what is this? You know, I mean, absolutely, you know, really, what is this? Because it was so different what I'd been doing. And that was on purpose. I didn't want it to be different what I was doing, because I figured I had covered all the bases in terms of horror work. You know, I'd done the vampires, I've done the zombies, I've done the werewolf, you know. So I thought, you know, it's time to do something different. And of course, then the publisher, you know, resisted a little bit. So I took the book. The book was almost bought. Speaks the Nightbird was almost bought, and you may all know the story because I've repeated the story several times. The book was almost bought by Viking, and Viking Press is like the temple of publishing in New York. It's fabulous. So I'm assigned an editor for Speaks the Nightbird, who reads the book, and I go up to talk to her, and she says, well, first of all, Rick, you can't make me believe that people were as religious in this era as you're painting them out to be. And I said, you know, I'm toning down the religious element quite a lot, you know. So she says, you know, there's a scene in which the doctor and the magistrate, actually they smoke pot together, right? You know. So she says, they're supposed to be smoking weed? I said, yeah. She says, is it supposed to be funny? I said, well, I think it's kind of humorous. She said, it is not. It's that kind of thing. So I realized, you know, this is just not going to work. She didn't know anything about the era, and why she got to be my editor there at Viking, I have no earthly idea. But so we're talking about some of the language that I use in the book, and she says, what does this word mean, this word Leviathan? What does that word mean? Honestly. And you know, because I had mentioned there's of course a great religious pamphlet, as is a pamphlet not basically on religion but on life itself, called Leviathan. I think it's by Thomas Hobbes. In that is the phrase "life is nasty, brutish, and short." We all know that phrase, but it's in that pamphlet. So she asked me what the word Leviathan meant. And now here is Viking Press in New York City, with one of the greatest libraries in the world, only a few blocks away, you know, and this woman does not know the name of the meaning of the word Leviathan. Therefore, in every book in the Matthew series, there is the word Leviathan. Yes. It's hidden there somewhere in the book. And the last book of this series, the title is Leviathan. So, you know, I'm not meaning to make a point, but I started thinking, you know, why not make a point if you can? I don't know. But, you know, I knew it was not going to work because we just didn't see eye to eye on anything. And she didn't understand the era, and she said, you know, the ending of this book is just bitter. Matthew should stay with Rachel and marry Rachel and stay in the town. And at that point, I was beginning to realize that I really liked the character. I really thought there was a potential to make a series out of this character and carry him on. And so I thought, you know what, I can't do that. I must move him on. He has a destiny to fulfill. And anyway, that editor and I broke all correspondence because she wanted to do something I could not do. So I had to turn my back on Viking Press, which was, and when you turn your back on a publisher like that, there are consequences. You're basically thrown out of the business almost, which is why I really remained silent for, I guess it was, 10 years or so? 10 years. Because I thought my career was over, because the great gods, and I viewed them as gods. I really did. Oh my God, I realized this is all going on Facebook. Oh no. Oh gosh. Okay, who cares? Come on. Let's go. Drive it in. So, I realized that I was done. So it was quite a shock to me to think that I've still got these ideas of books that I want to do, but yet you're not going to have the opportunity to do the books because you're basically through. So I was doing a reading at UAB. I was reading part of Speaks the Nightbird, and there was an editor there from River City Press in Montgomery. And so she said, basically, what are you doing with the book? And I said, well, nothing. And so they published the very first edition of Speaks the Nightbird, and it just went from there. And Speaks the Nightbird now, it's interesting because it's one of my most popular books, and I think that there is a popularity of this book, the series, that actually goes around the world. It's amazing to me. And why is that? I wondered why it is. Why is it that people really, this series appeals to people, and why, And I think it's because, well, I hope it's because the writing is good, and because, that's the number one thing. And I hope that it's an entertaining series. But I also think that, there's a simplicity to that world that we don't have today. There's a simplicity. There are no cell phones. There's no constant demand on going hither and yon. Travel is not fast. So there's a relaxed feel to that world that I think people, whether you know it or not, I think it appeals to people, and certainly it appeals to me. Because one of the things I found, because I've still been doing contemporary novels as I've been doing the Matthew series, and I've realized that with cell phones, it's very difficult now to write a suspense novel because you're never out of contact with people. And one of the tenets of the suspense genre is that you're in a way isolated. And so now when you're writing a horror novel or suspense novel, you really have to work to make sure. And it's kind of phony because the thing is they either lose their cell phone or or they're in a place where the cell phones don't work. Like, really? Okay. But I've done that myself, so really. So it makes it difficult, and so I think that's the appeal. That's part of the appeal to me of writing the series. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about the cell phones, the constant contact, and all that. So, so it's interesting though that also some writers have gone like way into tech. I mean, that's what they do. Tech is their thing. But to me, I enjoy the simplicity of this colonial era. Well, okay, let me talk about where the series is going. I don't know if you know much yet about Cardinal Black. But the series is, I have 2 more books to do in the series. The next book is called The King of Shadows. And of course, the final book is called Leviathan. But in between, I've come up with, I realized I've done several short stories in the Matthew world. And I think I'm going to do a few more short stories, and we're going to do a book of short stories, and maybe short novelettes in that world. It's called 7 Shades of Evil. And I think that will be out probably between King of Shadows and Leviathan. And I've realized the fun thing for me is that it suddenly dawned on me that I've created a world in which I can write stories about anybody in this world, and anybody in Matthew Corbett's world, and it can be interesting. Because this last, I don't know if you know, but there's a short story on the net, on my website, called The Pale Pipe Smoker, that I just finished not long ago. And that has Catherine Harold and Minx Cutter in it. So I can use Catherine, I can use Hudson Greathouse, I can use new characters, and I have a new character they introduced in Cardinal Black, who I think will probably go on. So that's fun for me to do. But I've thought about, I'm slowing down a little bit, I realize, because I'm working now on King of Shadows, but I'm not really floor to the pillar to the floor yet. Because I've realized I've really enjoyed doing this series. I mean, it's been very exciting to me to come up with these ideas and the narrow escapes that Matthew has and the impossible situations. And I'm really going to miss that because it's almost been like a family to me in a way. I know these people so well. And after you write a series like this, what the Potter series, did that go 7 or 5 or 7? Did that go 7 books? 7 books, okay. Now you can understand why when you write these series books and you really get into the world and the people, they become like your family. And you can almost hear them saying to you, please carry me on, carry me forward. If I'm taking a break, it's like, hey, what am I doing? Where am I? I'm in your mind, yes, but where am I? Where am I in terms of how other people see me? In other words, get off your butt and start writing. But it's been an exciting experience.